Hello and welcome to Unit 2, Supply Planning of Week 2. In Unit 1, we have released the demand forecast as input demand for supply planning. The supply planning objective is to balance the demand with supply within the company's supply chain related to purchase or production. The supply planning results are purchase or production proposals that fulfill the demand in time and in quantity. This serves likewise as input for purchasing and production execution. In this second unit, I will mainly focus on the procurement side. Some production-related details will be given in Week 3. First, let's have a look at the challenges for supply planners. They have to create a reliable supply plan for execution that stays stable as much as possible to avoid disruptions for execution. Additionally, they may need to build up inventory for supply safety reasons, and on the other hand, they need to avoid inventory surplus. Another challenge is that they have a high number of products to take care of. And they mainly need to focus on the critical products. That means the supply planner handles all different kinds of exceptions and must take appropriate measures. SAP Business by Design supply planning helps you to taking care of all these challenges. The supply and demand list visualizes the up-to-date situation with regards to demand, supply and inventory. The automated planning helps the planner to avoid spending time on uncritical products, and instead, he or she can focus only on exceptions for a couple of his products. Furthermore, the planner can choose between two complexity levels through the automated planning procedures. The first one is the demand-driven procedure, which considers all kinds of demand and calculates the net required quantity. This is relevant if demand is volatile, lead times are long, or product is expensive. The second one is the consumption-based procedure that calculates required receipts if the available stock is below a reorder point quantity. It is useful if demand is relatively constant, lead times are short, or storing the material is inexpensive. Another means for the planner is the capacity planning, which we'll cover in a later unit. And finally, the planner can use safety buffers with the help of supplier lead times or safety stock quantities. A planner usually follows the steps on the right. The released forecast demand and some product-dependent settings is initial input to the prepare planning step. The next step is the material planning run, also known as material requirement planning or MRP. This run can be either started automatically as scheduled, or it can be started interactively at any time. As a result, the production and purchase proposals are created. The planner usually checks either the planning exceptions or reviews important products in the supply and demand list, which answers questions like which orders are late, or what are the potential actions needed to improve the plan. For example, try to expedite an existing purchase order. The planner also can adapt or add purchase proposals before handover to execution. If the planner is happy with the plan, he or she can release it to purchasing or in-house production for execution. It makes sense to continuously monitor exceptions in between the planning run because it reflects real-time the actual supply situation. With the release to execution, the loop closes. Now we are getting more into what happens when the material planning run is started for the demand-driven planning procedure. As an input for material planning, there is the demand side to be considered, such as sales orders, demand forecasts, stock transfer orders, or dependent demand from production. On the supply side, there is the existing inventory and the firm supply, such as acknowledged purchase orders. The first of the product planning steps is the net requirement calculation that matches the existing demand and supply to determine uncovered demand. Normally, a product is produced or purchased in a certain quantity, which we call a lot. In the next step, it is calculated how many lots are needed when to fulfill the net requirements. Depending on the procurement types and the available source of supply, either purchase proposals, production proposals, or stock transfer proposals are created as new receipts. Existing ones could be reused, or may be deleted. Exceptions might arise because certain boundary conditions are not met, for example, because the planned receipt is too late and the planner must look for solutions. The linkage between the demand and supply is reflected through the material flow, which is created during the planning run. This helps the planner to understand the result of the planning run. A detailed explanation will be given in week 3. The last step of supply planning is the handover to execution. With the release, the proposals are converted into requests, and the responsibility is now with the purchasing or production department. Let's move to the next slide to give you more insights on the lot size calculation and the scheduling. We have said that during the material planning run, we calculate how many lots are needed. There are a couple of lot sizing methods that you can use. The lot sizing methods are depending on the product and its planning procedure. For example, the lot sizing method lot for lot. For each requirement, a supply proposal is created with the requested quantity. For the fixed lot size method, each proposal always has the same quantity. It makes sense, for example, to gain price reductions through ordering full packages. This method is reflected in the graph on the right side. Let me give you an example. The first demand of 50 would result in a receipt of 100. It would be enough to cover also the second demand of 80. It is not enough to cover the third demand of 60. That's why the next receipt of 150 is scheduled exactly at this point in time. There are further lot sizing methods like periodic lot size, but I won't explain them here. To ensure on-time availability of products, a couple of lead times should be considered for scheduling. The purchasing lead time specifies the overall time needed by the supplier to make goods available at our site. The goods receipt processing time is needed for our internal processing before it can be used, for example, for goods receipt inspections. In order to come to a reliable and robust material plan, a safety lead time can be defined as a buffer taking into account potential delays. Once the planned receipts are determined in quantity and date, the source of supply can be determined. We'll have a look at this on the next slide. For each product, you can define how it should be procured and how the source of supply is determined. For internal procurement, the source of supply, another site, is determined. For in-house production, it is checked if a valid production model is available at a certain site. For external procurement, the source of supply, the supplier, is identified through the following sequence. There might be a fixed supplier assigned to a product which is checked first. Then, existing supplier contracts are checked, and if this was not successful, existing list prices are taken into account. On the right side, you see an example in which the contract for supplier A is ranked before the list price of supplier B, but only for the first half of the year. If no valid source of supply was found, still a purchase proposal is created, but the source of supply needs to be found by the purchasing department. With the source of supply priority rule, the system automatically determines the source of supply across procurement types. The sequence is internal procurement first, then in-house production, and last, external procurement. Now I will show you how supply planning is represented in the system. A supply planner would work with the supply planning work center, and I will show you the product view. For our product, the supply planner can immediately see that we have exceptions. And in the detailed area on the exceptions sub-tab, you can see that there is a stock shortage. So for further details, we will just open the supply and demand list. In the supply and demand list, we see that we have an available stock of 0, and we have the 4 demand forecasts that were released by the demand planner from the previous unit. So, and we see that this results in a projected stock that is negative. And the quantity of 92 is related to the total net requirement for that product. In this upper section here, you see a couple of aggregated key figures, which is especially relevant if the list below is getting bigger. To overcome this situation, I will start the planning. I will not allow delivery planning proposals to be created in the past. So we have a look now here at the result. So you see we have, it were created, 4 purchase proposals were created. For all of them, we have the quantity of 30. This is due to the fact that in the product master, I have maintained a fixed lot size calculation method and with the quantity of 30. So the first proposal here is set to tomorrow. It's 11th of August. It's due to the fact that we have a purchase lead time of 1 day and the goods receive processing time of 8 hours. Here at the end, we see that the source of supply was determined immediately. Since this first purchase proposal is still a bit late, so I try to call the supplier to see if it's possible to accelerate the delivery. So when I call them, they will ensure me that at least partial quantity they could send earlier. That's why I will maintain here the quantity of 23 and try to get the material by today in the afternoon. So now I can save this. And I see immediately that this purchase proposal gets the status firm. That means in an automatic planning run will not touch this purchase proposal anymore. So now, since I'm content with the planning, I will immediately release this purchase proposal to the purchase department. I do that with the release. And we see immediately that the category has changed from proposal to request. And after a refresh, we will see that the number for the request is also displayed here. So with this, back to the slides. So in this supply planning unit, you have learned how material planning works, how the source of supply are assigned, and that the release from supply planning initiates the next level for execution. Thank you for joining and see you in Unit 3.